Benjamin Phillips is a freelance artist, illustrator, and educator currently living in Hastings. He is a multidisciplinary artist who creates drawings, paintings, prints, and ceramics. Working between the worlds of fine arts and illustration, he exhibits his self-initiated work alongside creating commission pieces for editorials, books, businesses, and private clients. In 2019, he was artist in residence at the Other Art Fair Truman Brewery in London. He also intermittently gives lectures at Brighton University on the illustration and the design for digital media BA courses. Twice a month, Benjamin runs workshops for two artists with disabilities, where they create collaborative artworks together. A selection of works by Amy Fenton and Benjamin are included in this year's Brewers Stoner International Prize. He is co-director of the Museum of Us, Hastings and St. Leonard's, a platform which aims to raise awareness of disability and neurodiversity. Benjamin's most recent publication is the graphic novel Outsetsagen, written by Ziggy Hanau and published by Cicada Books. They are currently working on a new graphic novel due for release in 2024. In 2021, he was awarded an Arts Council England grant to develop his creative practice as a writer. And today he will be talking about putting pictures to words.
Thank you. Well, it's very tough act to follow, Jen. That was amazing, and I don't feel so well equipped to talk about literary things because I spend my time making pictures. But I'll have a go. So see if this works. Oh, that's how you change slide. That's good. That's good. Okay, so I'm just going to give a brief overview of my process when it comes to working on a book like this, and how I go about creating illustrations to a text. Yeah, I worked on these two books for Jan. Emma from the Emma Press, who was the publisher that put this out, she got in touch with me back in January 2017, and she didn't have a firm project to be working on with me at the time until a couple months later when she got Jan's manuscript, and she sent that over to me. And there's always that kind of slightly worrisome moment before you read a manuscript if you don't know if you're going to connect with it or not. But thankfully, I felt an instant connection with Jan's writing, and it was very obvious early on that it was going to be a project that I was really going to enjoy working on. But I probably would have done the work anyway, even if I hadn't liked it, because that's my job. I got to earn some money. But no, it's really good. I felt this connection with Jan's work straight away. It felt very kind of familiar and comforting, like you're talking to a friend. And maybe that was because she was sending these short stories out to people that she knew, but it felt very very personal, but and sort of in jokes, like these sort of shared musings about this bizarre world. And I really connected with how it was so surreal and otherworldly, but then very kind of mundane and domestic and human at another point. And that's that magic realism thing, isn't it? I didn't know that's what it was called, but incredible. But it's interesting that I feel like maybe I'm a magic realist as well, and I didn't know it all this time, but I really enjoy those sort of juxtapositions of things you know, and then sort of taking it into this surreal space where you can kind of digest an idea and work things out on the paper. And I'm always interested to subvert something and to try and look at it from a different angle. So the first thing I do when I'm sent a manuscript like this is I print the whole thing out and read it from start to finish, and I'll jot little little drawings in the margins. This is a selection of some of the ones from the manuscript, and I've just scanned and made an image. But it's creating dozens and dozens of drawings, and then I see which ones I see the potential in, and maybe I'll take that drawing further and develop it. Or quite often the final illustration is very true to that original doodle, and it's that sort of first thought, best thought often is the case. It was actually a slightly cruel commission, because I only was able to do 6 illustrations from more than 50 short stories in the first book, and then the same for the second. But I feel like I could have illustrated the whole book, but I had to be selective, and so that made my job a little bit more difficult. But there's also this consideration of pacing of the book, so you don't want all of the illustrations to be clustered in the beginning or the end. You want an even distribution so that the book has a flow to it. Deciding the visual language for a book like this is probably the trickiest part, and as it's about narrowing your approach so that the final outcomes are consistent and it has this sort of strong visual language. And so the first piece that I created an image for was one about these parents who have a single child, and they think that the idea of raising an only child is cruel. So but they can't afford to have more siblings. So they enclose the child in this room, which is mirrored on all 4 sides, to give the baby the illusion of having many siblings or friends, and say things like, "Oh, look at all the mirror babies." And then I connected with this drawing straight away, with this idea, this concept. And maybe it's because I'm raising an only child as well, and I think it could be quite a good solution to this problem. But the feedback that I got from this illustration was that it was too polished, and maybe something less refined and scratchier would work better. So I went back to those original drawings, and I created something much more basic and linear, which I sent off to Emma, and I sent an inked version as well. And this one got the yes, so that kind of set the bar for the sort of parameters of what these illustrations could look like. It's interesting. I mean, it's only 5 years ago that this book was made, but already it feels like I would maybe tackle a project like this slightly differently now than I would have then. I think I was being slightly more selfish with the images that I created then, and I was I don't know, maybe my own visual language was informing it, the writing too much, and I think now I make more effort to be true to the text, but I'm still happy with the images. I think it's true of all of these short writings in this collection that they offer brief snapshots into others' lives and their thought processes, and due to the format, they must be concise because it's such a small word count, and so my images had to be concise as well. And whether that's channeling this sort of ethereal world of veteran swimmers, or the moment before a child has their hand bitten off by a dog. And I really connected to this sort of dreamy way of writing, because it's somewhere between our world and this sort of twisted alternate reality, but mixed in with the memory that the storyteller brings. It kind of feels like it's working on several planes at the same time. But I wanted my images to have the same sort of warped feel to them. Someone listening to the tree, and this is from the second collection, and the opening line is "She kept birds in her fridge," and it's just I was just hooked by that first sentence. I just knew this was going to be one that I illustrated, and it's quite like an instant feeling when you know that it will translate to an image, and I would like to make that as a sculptural thing, like the sort of diorama in a fridge. It's quite a beautiful image, and I like the juxtaposition of having these free and chirpy wild birds, but juxtaposed with like gherkin jars and margarine tubs. Okay, this is just a few other examples of my work, but what I wanted to talk about was that in illustration there's this emphasis on finding a style or method of production, and this is mainly as a way to communicate to prospective clients of what it is you do, and then they know what they're going to get if they commission you. And this is something that I struggled with for a long time, because I'm quite sporadic with my approach, and I like working in a range of different mediums, from ceramic to print and many different drawing and painting based methods. But I'm really grateful for having worked on the Postcard Stories series, because I feel like it was a slightly pivotal moment in my career where I was able to work out a way to work on a commercial project like this. As at the time I was also doing these live portraits where people will come and sit for me, sort of 20 minutes per person, and I will ink them in ink and brush and monochrome. And this is how Emma from the Emma Press, who sadly couldn't come today because she's heavily pregnant, isn't she? About to go. And she was at one of these events in London and saw me drawing, and she's a publisher of books, and she saw the images and she thought, oh, I'd like to make some images. I make some books which have imagery like this. But at the time, I think that I felt like my portraiture work and my illustration work were these two separate things, and it seems like really obvious, like I'm an idiot, like why would you work in these two separate ways and feel like they couldn't sort of coexist together? But I hadn't been able to do that until being given that prompt from Emma. My hand has become too clammy that my iPad doesn't seem to realize I'm human anymore. Okay. But what I'm trying to communicate is when you're a solo practicing artist, and I work in a studio on my own, there's not too much in the way of external voices which kind of push you in different directions or help you analyze what you're doing. And sometimes having this external voice is really beneficial to developing and taking your work in other directions. I've included this frame because my works are very analog, but I use Photoshop and the sort of computer editing side of things so that I can draw freely, and then I can select the elements and lines that I feel are most pleasing, and then I'll paste them together to create what looks like a very organic image, like hopefully it looks like that, the one on the right there. And I'm just saying that the computer editing allows you this ability to make things that look like that. So I'm stumbling over my own words. But in the end, I ended up rejecting that original image and went for something which was much more graphic, like the other images in the book. This is more in keeping. I particularly enjoy these are bottled disappointments, and this is the disappointment of cats. They are very aloof. So it's difficult to be free with your line and not make mistakes. Often an illustration or drawing can lose its spontaneity when a rough has been drawn, as there's this temptation to be over-influenced and to continually look back at that draft and using that initial drawing as the template for what the final piece should be. And as a result, it ends up losing its life and essence. But I feel like I'm working best when my my brush and my mind are sort of in that subconscious state, and the idiosyncrasies can sort of just go out onto the page. This slide's also to illustrate how I work in layers. So I've drawn my initial ink wash layer on the left and the linear side on the right, and then I impose them on top of each other to create the final piece. And this piece was about, I mean, do I say, is it you when you're writing these, or it's just the character, the voice of the author in this scenario? Okay, just for ease, say Jan was writing about making this robot replica of herself, but
I didn't really do that in real life.
no, but you wanted to, and I'm sure you would have done. But the idea was that the robot would fulfill the role of doing the more mundane tasks that she doesn't want to do, like doing her tax return, but she also doesn't want to be like outshone in parties by this robot because it's wittier than her or anything like that. So I kind of ended up feeling sorry for the robot in this situation. Like the robot is shiny and people can look at their reflections in her chrome facade, but I wanted the sadness to be apparent that this robot it's an autonomous creature in itself. This was a piece that I instantly connected with the concept of as well. It's a poet who goes to this artist residency, and he's short-sighted, and he leaves his glasses at home, so he's unaware that this ghost is haunting him for the whole week while he's there. And it's just, I just love the ridiculousness of these stories where it's like the horror genre from a different point of view. This slide is just, this is how many times I drew the head before I decided that the one at the bottom was the correct one. And it's just funny when you see 6 illustrations in a book, you think, oh, he did 6 drawings, but I'm doing lots and lots of drawings, and I hope that they look effortless. That's the intention, but I'm pranging out about this stuff. Yeah, it takes up too much headspace. I think Jan told me that this was her favourite one at some point when we met before, and it's this fancy dress party at a church, and this girl turns up dressed as the devil, which was frowned upon by the Reverend.
That one really happened.
Did that really happen? Were you the devil?
No, I was the youth worker in charge of the party.
Okay, wow, amazing. Is the costume accurate?
It was bright red, light blue.
Oh, whoa, sassy. Okay, and this piece is about inmates enjoying their Christmas dinner in prison, and I want the imagery to be like the text, that you can reflect on it, and you can see that it's funny, but it's sad, and there's a beauty. And I'm basically wanting to create imagery which comes after the text is read, that you can dwell upon the words, and you're experiencing the illustration as well. And it's the illustration is either lifting the text in some way. It's not just necessarily a literal reading of the writing, but it brings something else, because I feel like illustration is it's slightly worthless if it's not doing something else. Like, you don't need to have the word apple and then a picture of an apple. Both of those things are doing the same job in that situation. And this gentleman who laminated his wife again, it's just because Jan's writing is so punchy in this collection. She just sort of lays out her cards straight away. It's like, there was once a man who laminated his wife. That's all of that information is provided in the first sentence of the piece, and I don't need to necessarily have too much mystique in the illustration that I'm producing, because it's no spoiler alert. And yeah, it's a very sort of tragic and disgraceful event to seal one's wife in plastic. But the way Jan tells the story is so dry and kind of devoid of emotion. Yeah, I really enjoy its dryness. Okay, these slides are slightly more embarrassing because these are the roughs for the cover that I initially sent over, and yeah, they're not very good. And yeah, so I sent this one over to Emma. When I'm creating the works, I was only communicating with Emma. I assumed she was sending you imagery. It was good, for good reason. Yeah, I think she was moderating me. Yeah, and yeah, Emma said no, and so I think I was being too kind of literal. This one, yeah. What did you said no to that one? It wasn't good, was it? It was just thank you. Yeah, I don't know. I think I'm less arrogant than I used to be. I wouldn't censor myself, or like I just thought that I could do it first time, and it's clearly not the case. But then I produced this rough, which there was obviously more potential in, and it was developed to this. But I think I was maybe approaching the cover in the same way that I was approaching single images for inside the book, and it needed to have a different approach because you are having to communicate just the notion that there are lots of stories. There's more stories than just this collection. It kind of feels like is it still an ongoing part of your practice doing this?
Not at the minute, but I might revisit it.
Yeah, because it does feel like such a wonderful way to generate ideas, and yeah, no, I really connected with the books. How am I doing for time? I'm okay. I just wanted to show a couple of images from books which then led on from the postcard stories collections. So this was from the next book that I did after the second postcard stories book, and this is from Rakshan Rizwan's book My Sneezes Are Perfect, and I was able to use the skills that I feel like I honed in on more during the postcard stories books, and then develop it more to very character based stories. Like I thought it was interesting what Jan was saying about her relationship with character and stories, but it's written in a very different way. It's a much more kind of literal first person style of writing with these stories of Rizwan's, and it's for a younger audience as well. So I was having to work out how you have a set of characters and how you can communicate different stories through these characters, and more kind of toilet humor in this book. I've included this frame because this was a piece about flossing, which is a popular dance move, but my initial drawing was this because I just didn't understand the text, and I'm glad it's not lost on a French-speaking audience. Thank you. And today I'm now, as was said in my introduction, I'm working with graphic novel writers, and I just kind of wanted to thank Jan and thank Emma, because I don't think if I hadn't been given that opportunity to work on those books, I wouldn't have been able to progress to the point that I am doing this now. And I'm really happy doing this work. I'm very proud of these current books that this is from Altazaken with Ziggy Hanawa, and we're working on our second graphic novel now. But it feels that it's a very oversaturated market, illustration, and opportunities are few and far between. And if you don't necessarily do your best and you don't progress, it feels like you can quite easily drop off. But I'm very happy to be making this work now. And I'm venturing into colour as well. And it's just working out what your palette is, and the next book is going to be in full colour. So I kind of feel like with each book project that I've had, I've managed to push things forward and develop to a certain point where I feel like I have a wider skill set now. And that's Altazaken. Thank you.
Thank you, Benjamin. Thank you for your wonderful presentation. I have the 2 volumes here of postcard stories for students to have a look at during the break. Please come and have a look. I have a question. Was it Emma who decided what pictures to include? Did Jan have a say?
I don't know. Again, it was all via email, my communication with Emma, and I think it was just Emma who I was talking to. I didn't know whether she was bouncing things off of Jan as well, but no, it's predominantly just Emma. And that's often the role that an editor or a publisher will take.
And you said, you talked about a sentence, and you said, I knew it would translate well into an image. So like other translators here today, you're also a translator from words to pictures. And when you translate, what do you add and what gets lost in translation?
You're asking me what I bring to it and what gets lost. It's very subjective, and I don't know if I differ to a translator who's working with words that maybe I'm more I have my own agenda in a way, because and I suppose translators have that as well, but it's like Jan saying, you bring your own voice to that, and that's why a prize should maybe be split in that way, because you are interpreting and you're bringing your own experience and your own understanding of what that character is, and especially if it's a very kind of open story where so much is left up to the reader to decide what that scenario is and what the characters' objectives are.
Okay, thank you very much, Benjamin. I had sort of the same question as Monica, in fact. I was wondering how much communication there had been between you and Jan, if any, because you told us about the commissioning of your work, and then obviously you've been in touch with Emma, mostly, but no communication at all between you during the illustrating process? Not at all?
I've not had any book cover ever. I've never had any say in it or illustration.
Mm-hmm.
It's there it is.
Mm-hmm.
I think I got Emma sent me that first cover, the red one with the hand.
Yeah.
She was like, I don't know about this. What do you think? And I said, oh, I don't know about it either.
Yeah. I'm glad you said that, because I think I mean, I don't know if you've had the experience, and maybe you shouldn't say, of having a book cover and you're not relating to it or feeling like it does the job, especially if you're not doing this conversation with an artist.
I'm really lucky because I don't have a bad book cover yet. I'm sure there's one coming at some stage, but so far not yet, which has been really lucky. Translation? Okay, well, this is
That's for later.
the Arabic one is quite interesting.
Right, yeah. Because also when it's translated, they often use different covers in different countries, don't they?
Yeah, 'cause then you were telling us that external voices are important for you in the creation process. So so far, the external voice was mostly Emma's, right? Or did you get any other type of feedback from readers? From
I mean, I bounce things off my partner as well.
Okay.
So I share a studio space with my partner, and but she's a taxidermist, so she's on her side of the room.
Right.
I'm on mine, and I think also that's maybe why I connected with the birds in the fridge, because she's creating dioramas on her side, and I'm drawing on the other.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm sorry, I have tons of questions, but because I'm into illustration studies, that's why. I was very much interested in your idea of the organic image. Could you tell us a little bit more about that?
I think it's what I was picking up on before, when certainly with my work, if I'm paying too much attention to a brief or to my initial sketch, I'm often happier with that initial sketch than the final piece, because you overwork something, and it's the same way that a painter needs to know when to step away from the canvas and not overwork something. But it's more immediate with illustration, and you're trying to communicate something in a very kind of direct way. And I don't know, maybe to someone who doesn't draw, you'd think that a line is a line, but if you trace a drawing, I feel like it loses something. It's a little bit like when you photocopy a photocopy, and it loses that je ne sais quoi after a while, you know, it just dilutes. Or I feel like, I do feel like the feeling that you're having if you are engrossed in what you're doing, it does come through sometimes, and it's something which is hard to measure and hard for me to talk about, but I feel a connection to work, or I don't feel it. It was certainly with my own practice.
Other questions? Yes, Céline?
So maybe following on what has been said, I was wondering if you choose your own, the editors whom you're going to work with, or is that they who choose you? How does it work, and do you feel like you've got more recognition as an illustrator these days than you used to have maybe in the past?
Yeah, I mean, I still feel like I'm bottom of the food chain, so I'm not one of these artists who necessarily will self-initiate projects so much. I'm always being commissioned to make these works, and it's whether clients see that I have that worth, that I'm worthy of the commission. That's why I get the commission now, and because I have more work under my belt and I have a track record, I'm busier now than I ever been, and I feel like no one ever will commission you to do something that they haven't seen you do before, which is it's the same thing. Like, there's no one tapping you on the shoulder and saying, "Where's that book?" You know, they're not coming to you to see something that they haven't seen already, or if they are, it's only like 10%. They see that you've got that 80% and that other 20, whatever. But yeah, they're not taking any gambles, because the people who are commissioning you are also worried about costs as well, and you're creating a product. And I think that's the difference between being an artist and an illustrator in some ways, is that it is commercial to a degree. Yeah.
Any other questions? No? Well, let's thank Benjamin again.
Thank you.